Good day everyone. Today we will be talking about the identification of Staphylococcus and Streptococcus species. So here is an overview of the tests that we are going to do today. First one is the Catalase test, next Coagulase test, both slide and tube tests, then Mannitol salt agar, as well as Bacitracin, Optogene, and Novobiocin disc test. Without further ado, let's start with the Catalase test. Catalase test is used to differentiate those bacteria that produce the enzyme catalase from non-catalase producing bacteria. Its interpretation is, if it is positive, there is a formation of gas bubbles, whereas if it is negative, there are no gas bubbles. The materials used are the following: glass slides, plastic pipette, wooden applicator stick, Streptococcus isolates, Staphylococcus isolates, and hydrogen peroxide. After preparing the materials and disinfecting your workplace, we can now start with the procedure. First, add a drop of hydrogen peroxide on each slide using your plastic pipette. After adding, you can now emulsify a colony of Staphylococcus in the glass slide with hydrogen peroxide using a wooden applicator stick. Now, do the same thing with Streptococcus. Let us now observe the production of gas bubbles. Here are the results. For Staphylococcus, there is a formation of gas bubbles, which implies that it is positive for Catalase test. Whereas for Streptococcus, there is no presence of gas bubbles, which indicates that it is negative for Catalase test. Next is the Coagulase test. Coagulase test is used to differentiate coagulase positive species which are capable of coagulating plasma and produce clumps from coagulase negative species. Its interpretation is, if it is positive, there is clot formation, while if it is negative, there is no clot formation. Let us first do the Coagulase slide test. The materials used are the following: glass slides, plastic pipette, wooden applicator stick, Streptococcus isolates, Staphylococcus isolates, and human plasma. First, add a drop of human plasma on each slide. Then, add a drop of normal saline solution next to it. After adding, you can now emulsify a colony of Staphylococcus and Streptococcus on each slide, placing first on the saline followed by the human plasma. Here are the results. For Staphylococcus, it is observed that the drop of human plasma has created clumps which can be reported as coagulase positive, considering that the drop of normal saline solution still looks smooth and milky white. Whereas for Streptococcus, there is no clot formation in the drop of human plasma, which can be reported as coagulase negative. Also considering that the drop of normal saline solution still looks smooth and milky white. Let us now move forward to the coagulase tube test. The materials used are the following: test tubes, plastic pipette, wooden applicator stick, Streptococcus isolates, Staphylococcus isolates, and human plasma. First, add human plasma in a test tube. Then, inoculate a loop full of Staphylococcus in the human plasma. After adding, cover with paraffin wax and incubate for 4 hours. Here are the results. As observed, there is no coagulation formation after incubating for 4 hours, considering that Staphylococcus is coagulase positive. If that is the case, you can incubate further up to 18 hours, then observe again for coagulation formation. For the next test, we have the Mannitol salt agar. Mannitol salt agar is a selective and differential medium. It is selective because of the 7.5% sodium chloride, whereas it is differential because of the mannitol fermentation. Its interpretation is, if it is growth without fermentation, the plate remains pink to red, without yellow halo surrounding the growth. Whereas, if it is growth with fermentation, there are yellow halos surrounding the growth. The materials used are the following: mannitol salt agar, inoculating loop, Streptococcus isolates, and Staphylococcus isolates. First, using an inoculating loop, streak a colony of Staphylococcus on one side of the mannitol salt agar. Remember that you should do the continuous streak. After flaming the loop, do the same procedure with Streptococcus on the other side. Here are the results. For Staphylococcus, it is observed that there is growth and there are yellow halos around the colonies, which indicates that it is a mannitol fermenter. On the other hand, for Streptococcus, there is minimal growth and there are no yellow halos around the colonies, which indicates that it is a non-mannitol fermenter. For the last activity, we have the bacitracin, optochin, and novobiocin disc test. This test is an example of antimicrobial susceptibility testing. It is used to identify which species is present, as well as to determine which antibiotic should be used against certain species. The materials used are the following: forceps, bacitracin disc, optochin disc, novobiocin disc, streptococcus isolates, staphylococcus isolates, and blood agar plate. First, you have to standardize the inoculum by comparing its turbidity to McFarland standard. If you have already standardized the inoculum, you can now proceed to streaking the blood agar plate with Staphylococcus on one side and Streptococcus on the other side. Remember that you should do the overlapping streak. After streaking, you can now put the discs on the agar. Put the novobiocin disc on the side of Staphylococcus, whereas bacitracin and optochin discs on the side of Streptococcus. Here are the results. For the novobiocin disc on the side of Staphylococcus, a zone of inhibition with a diameter of 20 mm is measured using a caliper. Based on the interpretative table, it is considered as susceptible since the zone diameter is greater than 16 mm. On the side of Streptococcus, there are no zones of inhibition on both bacitracin and optochin discs, which can be reported as resistant based on the interpretative table. That's all for today, and I hope you learned something.